Are you looking for the best hair loss treatments and solutions for you? Well, you're in luck because today I have a hair restoration expert, Kimberly Vaughn. Kimberly is a board certified clinical trichologist who has been dedicated to the study of hair and scalp for over 25 years. As founder of HPI Hair, Kimberly has treated thousands of clients using a trichological paramedical approach. She's internationally recognized and trained as a leading expert in the science and practice of hair and scalp treatments. Kimberly is also an early adopter of cutting-edge treatments and is passionately focused on a whole body approach as a certified nutritional consultant. She's an active member of the World Trichology Society, International Association of Trichologists, National Alopecia Areata Foundation, American Hair Loss Association, and TLC Foundation. Kimberly's vision for the company drives the operations, marketing, and business development efforts. They also have a medical director on staff. I know that's super important. So very, very thorough practice. So Kimberly, I have some questions for you. I hope that you can answer anything I missed that you wanted to share with the audience.
Oh my gosh, no, just how exciting it is to be on your show today, Emily. This is so much fun. And, since you focus on men and women as well, and there's 80 million Americans in the United States that are losing their hair, it's just so exciting to have an opportunity to talk about it.
Oh, well, I can't wait to learn more because both myself and my partner have both dealt with hair loss. So it's something that affects obviously men and women. And I was blown away when it started to affect me, especially in COVID. I really didn't know what was causing it or what to do about it. So I'm so excited to talk with you. I'm going to start with some questions that my students from my dating coaching program have. The first being, does rubbing cinnamon into your scalp really mitigate against future hair loss? And what about reversing hair loss?
Oh my gosh. Let's see. So let's start with cinnamon. When I think of cinnamon, I usually think of cooking, right? And we think of lots of opportunities of adding cinnamon into our cookies, our doughs, our flavors, right? But there's an awful lot of information and false information that is out in the world of the internet and Google searching that give us false hope for miracle cures such as cinnamon, such as olive oil, such as rosemary oil, lots of different holistic and natural ingredients. And so cinnamon can be used as an anti-inflammatory. And so it helps the body sometimes lower inflammation. By rubbing it onto the scalp, I think you're going to smell nice and spicy when it's all over. But I don't know if there's any factual evidence that rubbing cinnamon on the scalp is going to make a difference.
Fabulous. That actually made me think of a question that my dad used to say this with so much authority, like I just believed him. But he used to tell me if you rub blackstrap molasses on your hair, you will reverse grayness. Is that just total crap?
Well, the part of the crap is that putting anything on the top of your head is only treating the skin that it's touching or the hair strands that it's touching, right? Mm-hmm. The graying process of the hair starts well below the top layer of the skin. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that would be a little questionable. But, a long time ago, there were a lot of wives' tales and a lot of things that we thought worked that we've learned since then, since science helps us, right? Helps us learn a lot more, but then it also helps us learn what we don't know. And so there's no scientific evidence that black molasses or cinnamon is going to make a difference in the color of the hair or in how slow the hair is going to shed.
Fabulous. Okay. Can you tell me, why does an increase in testosterone levels correspond with an increase in hair loss and beard growth?
Okay, so a lot packed in that particular question. So let's start with testosterone, right? So the one thing that most all men are familiar with is an acronym or an initials called DHT. And so DHT stands for dihydrotestosterone. So we have to first think about what is testosterone, right? So testosterone is a hormone. The hormone is responsible for helping our bodies maintain its normal growth. Now, when we think of testosterone, we also think of testosterone mostly for men. But what women need to understand is that you have components and levels of testosterone for women, just as you do for men. But when testosterone is formed in the body and when we are born in vitro, that is when that you will typically find that either your genetic position, right, of a male or a female will dictate how much testosterone that you have in your body. And so scientists have said for many, many years, and it is now proven that we have this DHT breakdown or this dehydrotestosterone that starts to, in my terminology, coagulate or clog the actual hair strand itself in the follicle. And so when that starts to happen, think of it as a clogged, I love this because so many of our male clients talk about grass growing, right? And so if you don't properly take care of the soil, then the grass doesn't grow through and it usually gets stuck, right? Because you have this hard layer of soil. And so therefore the strand of grass cannot grow through. That's because of the outside layer is affected and it's too hard. But if the outside layer were not affected, and say it was a rainy day, right? You would think the grass would just normally grow through that opening in the soil. But the grass will not grow through if it is being affected by an infection or bacteria in the so much deeper below the surface of the skin is where dehydrotestosterone affects the hair growth itself. And it starts to miniaturize this hair. Because if you think of a tube, right? And then if we start to add products into that tube that squeeze out or miniaturize the opening of the tube, then the ingredient, whether it's a hair or whether it is a strand of grass, doesn't have nearly the room to grow through and to bud. And so that is what happens with our dehydrotestosterone, is it starts to clog the inside of that hair shaft.
Oh, and so is it different with the beard than it would be on the top?
So yes, and so what happens is that we have learned over the years that we have two types or areas of concern when we talk about hair loss. The first is male pattern thinning, right? So that is a typical thought that we envision, right? Of when we think of a male thinning, we think of it thinning from the frontal hairline or starting in the crown and then somewhere meeting in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. And so we know from a scientific perspective that that area of the scalp is affected by testosterone or affected by hair loss. For women, and as you had shared earlier with COVID, you experienced something called female pattern hair loss. And when we experience female pattern hair loss, we can truly be a male or a female experiencing it. But it means that the hair is going to start shedding from the frontal hairline all the way to the nape or from the nape to the front. And so what happens is again, now we know that there's a different affection in the hair follicle itself, and there's something else that's causing that loss. When it comes to other areas of our body, right, it means that testosterone is probably the production of testosterone is fluid and is producing just as it's supposed to. And so when we find that our beards get thicker, or we find that we have more hair on our body than we do on our head, many times that means that our levels of testosterone are elevated. And so for men or for women, if we're utilizing any form of hormone replacement therapy in testosterone, whether it's injections, whether it's pellets, whether it's cream, for men or for women, it can cause that testosterone level to be elevated, which what we've learned is that it causes more hair loss on the top of the head, but it can cause more hair growth on the rest of the body.
Oh, weird. It would be nice if we could just tell it where to go.
Yes, wouldn't that be nice? That's precisely what I was talking about. The more we know, the more we realize we don't know, which is more frustrating, right? Because why can't we determine where that testosterone goes, right? It's like, hey, okay, I'm going to have an injection of testosterone. Well, I want to put it where it's going to affect the positives of my body, right? And not the negatives, but it doesn't quite work that way.
Darn it.
I know.
Interesting. Okay, so what are some behaviors we can do to promote and protect our hair follicles? Are there certain shampoos that are detrimental to follicle health?
Right. So, what can we do to help the hair continue to grow? So, hair loss is complicated. Yes, we have a genetic form of hair loss, right? Which this is this dihydrotestosterone or this DHT buildup that we spoke about. That is fairly clear in the path, right? So we can test and we can determine what's going on with the genetics to determine, is this a genetic hair loss case? If it's not, and there are other things that we can do that would help us with continuing to grow hair fluidly, then we also need to look inside the body. So, because hair loss is complicated and because genetics isn't the only factor, we need to make sure that the rest of the body is functioning well. Again, I'm going to go back to your example of COVID, right? So we saw a tremendous uptick in hair loss across men and women after and during the pandemic. And we're still seeing what's called long haul COVID sufferers that are still having a tremendous amount of chronic shedding that doesn't seem to want to let up. So what we can do proactively is make sure that our hormone levels are all balanced correctly. So depending upon your age, you're going to have different surges in hormone levels, right? So if you think about children when they go through puberty, for men, we see a higher level of testosterone. For women, we see higher levels of estrogen. We see both increase and vacillate over their aging process. But as we start to get older, then we see that take the opposite turn when we start going through aging processes, such as getting older with menopause or andropause, which is a male form of female menopause. And so making sure that our body's healthy, making sure that we're getting our labs tested, making sure that our hormone levels are right, and there's no other autoimmune condition. So this is the other big area that we need to focus on is autoimmunity. So simply how much inflammation is in the body and how strong are the cells of the body. And so there is a condition called alopecia areata, alopecia universalis, and alopecia totalis. And so the reason I'm using this as an analogy is because you can lose your hair from small spots on the scalp to all over the top of the head, all throughout the entire body. That is an autoimmune condition. And so when that particular autoimmune condition flares, in whether it's in hair loss, whether it's in rheumatoid arthritis, whether it is in a thyroid disposition, it causes effects on the entire body. So making sure that your holistic health is really in check is a real good prevention. The other is thinking about stress on the hair itself. So when we think about lots of braids, when we think about extensions, when we think about pulling the hair or tugging on the hair in a manner of always pulling the hair up in a pony, back in a pony, or a bun, males or females, that can contribute to a situation that is called traction alopecia. So caring for your scalp, just as you care for your skin, is extremely important. Caring for your holistic body is also very, very critical in making sure that your follicles continue to stimulate natural growing hair.
Awesome. And so when someone comes to work with you, do you tell them what tests they need to do for hormone levels and all of that as well? Because that's something, as a person who recently had a child, my hormone levels are like all over. And I took several tests to see what was happening. And they all came back like normal, but I'm like, there's no way, so do you help people understand which tests they need to order to examine their hormonal health?
Most definitely. So our clinic starts with 3 testing, and that is the reason that we're a trichology clinic. And from a trichology perspective, we look at the root causes of the hair loss. So as I mentioned earlier, right, male pattern thinning or androgenetic alopecia, AGA, as most men know of it, it's pretty straightforward. However, when men are shedding very early, as early as 14, 15 years old, many times there's something else driving that hair loss. So, in men and women alike, we have to get to the root cause. So, we start with 3 different forms of testing. The first can be traditional labs. Those can be for clients that are all over the United States. We work with a national lab company. And so, yes, we can provide the lab requisition that you can take and have reviewed at any city or any state. The next is the DNA genetic test. And so what this does is it's not a 23andMe, and I don't know, there's a bunch of other ones that are on the market, but this specifically focuses on what's going on in your genetic predisposition and how that is affecting your hair growth and your hair loss. It takes it to the next step. And then it also says which medications, whether it's oral or topical, are going to be absorbed in the body the best for you and will give you the best outcome. We all want more shots on goal right now, right? Hair loss falls out very quickly, but it takes a very long time to grow back. So we would much rather hit it with exactly the right prescribed treatment to start so that in 6 months, 9 months, a year later, we truly are seeing results. And so that is what the DNA test helps us with. In your particular situation, and for anyone that's listening that's had any type of holistic issues, such as pregnancy, such as diet issues, such as intestinal issues, Crohn's is a perfect example, right? Is that we need to look deeper into the body. And when I say deeper, not from a blood level of just labs, we need to look at it from an epigenetic level. And so epigenetics is really what is going on in our environment and how does it affect our body? How does it affect our immune system, our amino acids in our body, our cell reproduction? What is happening with viruses that could be lingering in our system? All of this slows the body down. And so we need to find out and uncover what else could be going on so that we can go back to that holistic approach and truly help your body help itself regain more cells. The hair, skin, and the nail are made of cells. And so that's what we always have to going back to.
Very helpful. Very helpful. So are there any alternatives to finasteride, Proscar that are FDA approved?
Oh, great question, Emily. Applaud your student. I love it. So finasteride's been on the market for quite some time and was on the market and used somewhat off-label for hair loss for many years before it was finally FDA approved. It now has a sister strain of a similar medication with dutasteride as the name. Also currently not approved by the FDA for hair loss treatment. However, it is being more widely recommended and prescribed by the medical community because there are some individuals that dutasteride is working better for than finasteride. And Proscar is just kind of an off-label name. And so that is one of the reasons that we find that, making sure that we're staying FDA compliant as clinicians is certainly important. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that the medication orally that we're taking or topically, right, is actually going to work. So this is the reason that we were talking about our DNA testing before, is it's really important instead of taking a medication for a year, 5 years, however many years, and not knowing if it's working or not, is to determine, is that the right medication for you?
Okay. And any idea, like, how would you know that it might not be?
Well, and so there are certain tests. And so our particular DNA genetic test will look at over 350 SNPs, which just means a genetic strain, right? Mm-hmm. And we can tell within that analysis is to understand which particular medication is your body going to respond to. Mm-hmm. So is it finasteride? Is it dutasteride? Is it minoxidil? Is it vitamin E? Is it another type of supplement? You know, I mean, we all talk about saw palmetto, right? Saw palmetto orals for, oh, it's going to slow my hair loss down. That doesn't always work that way, but it is a very popular brand of supplement. Biotin is another one. But taking anything that you're unsure it's going to work or not for any lengthy period of time is not as wise as really trying to get to the root cause of what is going to work for you.
Yeah, because I can imagine if you take it and you've been taking it for a really long time, you really don't know, could it be better? Or is this really effective or not? So that's interesting.
The other point is a lot of times we will find that clients, if they have been on a finasteride, they do not want to stop taking it, because if they've already started to thin, then they have read somewhere that if you stop taking finasteride, that it will cause your hair to fall back out again. And it doesn't work that way. But at the same time, it doesn't matter if you're taking finasteride, if you're taking a supplement, if you're taking a heart medication, anything moderate to a severe, heavy dosing of medication that's critical for your body. You never want to just go cold turkey and just stop using it anyway.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going to read this from one of my students. He says, I'm personally have been on a hair restoration journey for a minute. I will say I've experienced the most growth and success in the past few months. My regimen is 5% minoxidil, just the generic brand from Costco, generic finasteride, and this is the new thing I added, which is red light therapy. I honestly think the red light has really supercharged things. What do you feel about that?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That is exactly the reason that he is finally starting to see success. So red light therapy is the core of everything we do at our clinic, because it's natural. 2, it is stimulating the blood flow. So the way that you improve upon cellular health is you allow more oxygen to the cell and you allow the blood to flow more freely, right? Why is it that we talk about working out? Why is it that we talk about exercising? And so all of these principles are exactly the same for the hair follicle. And so the red light therapy will definitely help. And for your student, one of the other things I would highly encourage, make sure that you're using your red light therapy post applying any topical. So if he's applying finasteride topical or he's applying minoxidil topical, and those can be combined. So we do a lot of compounding with our topicals. And so combining the two, applying the treatment onto the scalp, then using your red light therapy even supercharges the red light therapy.
I love that. And can you just get a red light therapy like mask or something on Amazon, or is there a specific one that you should get? What do you recommend?
Love these questions, and we didn't talk about these before, so I'm so glad. It's great. So red light therapy is not all made equally, just like everything else. And so you have to have a certain penetration with your lights, and the lights have to stay bright in the same warm heat level that will penetrate into the follicle. And so right now you can find a red light laser cap or phototherapy laser cap on Amazon, probably ranging anywhere from $300 to $8,000, right? Anywhere from a small little device that has 3 or 4 laser diode lights, all the way in just red lights, all the way up to 300, 350 for professional devices. So the key really is you need to check the wattage and how long the lights are maintaining this strength. because there is a certain strength professionally that the wattage and the light, the way that it penetrates into the surface of the skin, you need it to be deep enough. And so a lot of retail devices do not go deep enough. And I'm not, downplaying any of our vendors or any of the manufacturers, but, stay in the United States with your manufacturing company and make sure that you're utilizing a professional device. And there are 3 or 4 really good brands on the market that are professional, that are the ones that you want to stay with. And having that continuous light stream is the key that we have found works better than a actual blinking off and on and an interim light. We feel that it penetrates a lot deeper with a continuous light.
And do you know these brands, what they are for our students, so we can give links to them?
Of course. So there is a brand that we use. We use 3 brands, actually. The first is a professional brand that is Laser Cap. So it's actually the original trademark Laser Cap brand that is made here in the United States. The other is the Capillus brand. Both of these are both professional. They also have 2 different ways of the light penetration to stay continuous. And because they are professional devices, the Laser Cap as well as Capillus, both of those brands allow the user to set the timer on the preferred time that they will need. And if the student, or if anyone that's listening, is under professional care for your hair loss, you want to check with your provider and the specialist, and they will be able to adjust the timing to work for your particular degree of hair loss. So some hair loss is very early stage, others is very aggressive stage. And so we have to customize the amount of light therapy that's needed depending upon the aggressiveness of the light.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's great.
Sure.
One more question in my men's side, and then I think I've got one on the women's. So what is the most cost-effective repair for a receding hairline after medication regimen is already in place?
So I think, boy, that's a big question, because there's so many opportunities for additional treatment. When we talk about the injections of exosomes, when we talk about microneedling with growth factors, when we talk about platelet-rich plasma injections, which are also a growth factor that are derived directly from the body, right? And so when we talk about cost effectiveness, is this something that the student wants to try at home? And if it is, then we have clients that are being successful with derma rolling the scalp. And so, you probably are very familiar with derma rolling one's face or skin. Most women have heard of it before, but you can also derma roll the scalp as well. And so the cause of the derma rolling causes the body to repair itself and to heal itself. The derma roller, as well as the microneedling, will also add channels into that top layer of skin. So remember the analogy we talked about earlier with growing grass, right? We have to make sure that the top layer of the skin is lubricated and is open for products to truly penetrate. So there are, again, 6 different solutions for more aggressive types of treatment for a frontal hairline recession. And typically the frontal hairline recession is where we need the most aggressive treatment. And the sooner that the individual starts with the treatment, the sooner that the slowing and the miniaturization of the hair will take place, because that is one of the areas that's the most aggressive, that, where we see that the AGA and the male pattern thinning takes hold first. And so cost effectiveness, derma rolling at home, along with topical treatments. Again, topical treatments probably need to be compounded and customized depending upon the aggressiveness of one's hair loss. Then moving into microneedling, moving into injections on the scalp as well. There's also a couple of new devices that act similar to, if you think of an ultrasound, it's how there's sound waves that actually can kind of open up that top layer of skin and soften that scalp so that there's other types of penetration mechanisms with your topicals. And then go back to the red light therapy as well. Is so a red light cap, it can be used for many, many years. And it's something that should be used on an ongoing maintenance basis.
I love it. You're clearly an expert. You definitely know your stuff. I'm so glad that you're here sharing all of this juicy knowledge with us.
Let's hope it's helpful, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see if I can find the women's one. So from my women's side, I've heard a lot regarding rosemary oil. Is it effective and at what dose? Is that kind of similar to what you had shared?
Something similar to the cinnamon.
Yeah.
It's okay though. There's some validity in rosemary oil only because it's also a little bit of a stimulant. It also is known to reduce inflammation on the scalp, and the lubrication with the rosemary oil can also cause a little bit of natural stimulation if one massages it into the scalp. So that's the other key, is that what's really the nature of the hair loss? So is it because the hormones are shifting? Is it because the body has less moisture? Then rosemary oil certainly is a very cost-effective, easy treatment, right? After using for 30 days, if you're not seeing results, then it obviously isn't getting to the root cause of the issue.
Very helpful. Well, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. If someone is in need of your services and would love to learn more, how can they get in contact with you?
Yes, so it's very easy because we are able to help clients all over the world, and we offer a 15-minute analysis, which is quick and easy, and they can reach us through our website on our consultation page. And the website is HPI Hair Partners. And it's HPI, HAIRPARTNERS.com.
Perfect. And I will make sure to link that below this video so you can reach out to Kimberly. Yeah, any final thoughts or tips that you would like to share with our audience?
Yes, thank you for that, because I think the one thing that's the most important takeaway from today is that if anyone is experiencing hair loss, and they've been experiencing hair loss for more than 6 to 9 months, whether it's acute or whether it's been chronic, but it's starting to increase, it's really, really important to seek a professional recommendation and professional counsel on that, because it doesn't mean that it is just a genetic form of hair loss. And so utilizing a trichologist that's in someone's area, reaching out to us to dive in to really understand what is the root cause of the hair loss is the most important takeaway from today, no matter what. And
is it something where the sooner the better? Because if you don't get on top of it, it's not going to come back?
Yes, that's right. And, you know, again, there's lots of information online that will say, oh, if your hair follicle's been dead, you know, for 5 years, for 10 years, it's not going to grow back. Well, only a biopsy will tell you that, right? Because we truly would have to take a biopsy of the tissue to see if the follicle is completely closed. But I can tell you that we have clients that range anywhere from very young, early teens, all the way through 80 years old. And we are seeing restoration efforts work even for our 80-year-old clients, males as well as females.
Amazing. Well, that's so great. I love that makes me feel very hopeful about, and I hope that anybody who's watching feels very hopeful about what's possible for their hair. I certainly will be looking into this as I am pregnant now. So I know I will have in the future a lot of hair loss. And so it would be great to learn about how, you know, just how to stay on top of that. So thank you so much, Kimberly, for being here. I really appreciate your time. And that wraps up this video, guys. If you like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment in the comments below. Let us know what you're struggling with in terms of your hair loss. And then also follow us on social media. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.